Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you an action, thriller film from 2009, titled Accident. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In the middle of the night, a young lady crashes her car and instantly dies before the car catches on fire. Her watch flies off her wrist and breaks as soon as it hits the floor. Sometime later, a man finds himself caught in traffic when the woman stops her car in the middle of the street because she has a flat tire. Since the road is blocked now, the man drives around her to turn the corner and almost crashes against a truck driven by Uncle. By dodging the truck, he ends up driving onto the sidewalk, and the banner from a store falls on top of his windshield. The man leaves the car to remove the banner, but by pulling it, it shakes a wire attached to a window, which had been previously prepared by Fatty. The window breaks and all the shards fall on top of the man, killing him. People quickly call the police, who come to check on him while waiting for the ambulance. Among the curious crowd, the brain is making sure everything is going according to plan. It turns out this hadn't been an accident, it was a murder planned by his team, which creates elaborate schemes to make their kills look like accidents. The cops help woman push away her car to leave, and Uncle leaves too in his truck after dropping his cigarette on the ground. Brain sees this and picks it up not to leave any evidence at the scene of the crime. Meanwhile, Fatty goes to a parking lot nearby where he uses balloons to cover up the security camera. Then he approaches the car where their client left their payment to pick up the envelope with the cash. Moments later, woman and Uncle are at their hideout watching the news. The man they killed was a Triad gang boss and there was no doubt it had been an accident. Woman's worried about Uncle's mistake of dropping his cigarette, but when Fatty comes over, Uncle lies and says he picked the cigarette up. Brain is hearing all this through hidden microphones he installed in the room ages ago, so when he comes over too, he scolds Uncle for lying and reveals the cigarette he had picked up. He isn't sure if he can keep on trusting Uncle, and while Uncle throws a tantrum, Brain reminds everyone that mistakes like this jeopardize their safety. Not wanting to lose this job, Uncle announces he's quitting smoking for good. After their meeting is over, Brain goes home through 3 different means of transport to lose anyone that may follow him. When he arrives at his apartment, he makes sure there's a leaf stuck on the door, which he puts there every time he leaves so he knows that if it's fallen, it means someone broke in. After putting the money in the safe, he plays some music and lies down in bed to pretend his wife who died in the car crash is still there with him. Sometime later, Mr. Wong is contacted by Fatty to receive instructions on how to hire them for their next killing. He must grab a bag from a trash can and put his belongings in them. Then he must enter an old building and leave the bag outside the elevator while he goes to the 6th floor. Fatty picks up the bag and takes it with him on the bus where he meets Brain and they look through the things together. Wong wants them to kill his wheelchair-bound father. For a couple of days, Brain follows father and son to learn their routine by heart, then the team studies the area to come up with ideas for accidents. Their best option is to use the electricity that powers the local tram, because Brain refuses to even consider a car crash as an option. In the end, they come up with the idea of hanging a wire from the tram cable that will make contact with the target when he crosses the tracks. To make it conduct electricity though, they'll have to execute the plan during a rainy night. To hang such wire on the cable, the team practices flying kites in the rain. They wait for the forecast to predict a rainy night, and when it finally happens, everyone gets in position. Woman will fly the kite, Uncle pretends to be a street toy seller that happens to have balloons, and Fatty will drive a bicycle while pretending to do some deliveries. Unfortunately, it doesn't rain the moment Wong and his father cross the tracks, so they have to abort the plan for that day. The weather seems to be mocking them because it begins raining as soon as they leave, and the following few tries also fail because rain never falls on time. One night, while waiting, Woman and Fatty notice Uncle's breaking his promise and smoking a cigarette. They scold him for it, reminding him of his quitting some days ago, but he begins showing signs of Alzheimer's when he doesn't remember his promise. Woman and Fatty think they should abort the mission because Uncle is obviously not well, but at that moment, it starts raining. Not wanting to miss the chance they've been waiting for so long and since Uncle swears he's fine, Brain orders them to execute the plan. First, Woman lets the kite tangle around the tram cable. Then, Uncle is supposed to release the balloons to cover the security camera, but he forgets. Brain tells Fatty that since it's dark and raining, they can take the risk anyway, so Fatty pushes through with his bicycle and drives near Wong to make him trip and fall. This causes him to let go of his father's wheelchair and the old man slips back into the tram tracks, where he is touched by the kite wire and instantly electrocuted. Afterward, Brain goes to look for Uncle, and in his hurry, he bumps against a random person. While dodging them, he steps onto the street without noticing the incoming bus. In his desperation to avoid hitting Brain, the bus driver turns the vehicle and ends up hitting Fatty instead before crashing against a car. Brain runs to check on Fatty, who wonders if this truly was an accident before dying. Not having time to waste, Brain takes all of Fatty's personal belongings and runs away before the police can find him. When Brain arrives at his apartment later, he finds the leaf on the floor, indicating someone has broken in. However, the police are already there because a neighbor noticed the open door and called them. The apartment is a mess and all the money is missing from the safe, but Brain is relieved to see at least they didn't take his wife's watch. Before leaving, the cops tell him that other flats in the building have also been broken into, but Brain still believes this was no accident. Someone obviously is going after the team. Feeling extremely paranoid, he removes the SIM card from his phone not to be tracked, frustrating woman because now she can't reach him. Afterward, Brain goes to stay at another apartment that he had rented for emergencies like this one. The TV shows the police have decided the bus crash was an accident, and the driver is still unconscious. The next day, Brain begins watching the streets from an abandoned building. Uncle has forgotten they've already finished the job, so he's pretending to be the toy seller again, and Wong is going to an insurance company's office to see his agent Chan. The two men argue strongly about a file, which leaves Wong crying and Chan making a serious-looking phone call. Afterward, Brain goes to have lunch at a local fast food joint and accidentally comes across woman, who expresses her worries. Brain refuses to talk to her and leaves as soon as she opens her mouth. In the evening, Brain visits Uncle, who has started to take pills, and tells him this plan has been aborted. The next morning, Brain takes him to another one of his many apartments, where he has to stop Uncle from taking his pills twice. Uncle admits he can't recall when he began getting so forgetful and he doesn't remember the exact state of his health. He does remember Brain though, and that his wife died because of a speeding car. To this day, Brain still thinks that the accident had been a setup that should have killed him instead, and Uncle is the only one that believes him. In order to keep Uncle busy and safe, Brain makes up a new mission and tells him to stay in that apartment, keeping an eye on the happenings of the street under his window until new orders. Next, Brain beings following Chan around, getting suspicious when he hears him talking on the phone on the bus, saying it's been done. At home, he seems to be going through a regular normal life, and Brain can't help noticing that the apartment under Chan's is up for rent. The next day, Brain changes his looks and rents the empty apartment. He installs a bunch of mirrors that will allow him to always keep an eye on the door, then breaks into Chan's apartment to investigate the man further. First, he checks all the personal items for any clues, finding nothing. Then he installs some hidden microphones before returning to his own place to draw Chan's floor plan on his ceiling. From then on, Brain keeps a close surveillance on Chan, taking notes of every conversation he hears. The only person he sometimes talks to is Uncle, who keeps calling him to tell him he's forgotten about the balloons. Whenever Chan leaves for work, Brain follows him and spies on him at the office. One morning, Wong has another conversation with Chan, looking completely distressed. After refusing to give Chan a file, Wong goes to the usual parking lot to leave the payment in a car. Brain's surprised to find there's a balloon already there covering the security camera and decides to wait, which allows him to discover woman is coming to pick up the envelope. Brain calls her after she gets in her own car, and she explains she's now in charge of picking up payments. Fatty had told her about this client, which Brain refuses to believe because Fatty wasn't supposed to share that information with anyone on the team. Brain accuses her of having followed Fatty in the past and of betraying him, demanding to know who staged the bus crash. Woman calls him paranoid for thinking it wasn't an accident, but Brain doesn't listen and decides to kill her. By forcing the fire alarm, the tap on a nearby pipe flies off under the water pressure and hits Woman on the head. After cleaning his fingerprints off the alarm, Brain checks she's really dead and takes away the envelope with the cash. On his way out of the building, he sees Wong falling to the ground, instantly dying. More suspicious of the agent now, Brain works extra hard on following his movements and conversations. One evening, he hears Chan mention a client that he calls an old man, who fell from a window on the second floor. On a different night, Brain has to sit through Chan and his girlfriend getting busy, which makes him miss his wife even more. A few days later, Brain hears Chan tell his mother on the phone about Wong's weird case. Wong had indeed met with Chan before he decided to end things for himself to give Chan his father's death certificate, but he had acted strange and kept saying he was sorry. Afterward, someone saw him take the elevator to the roof, and Chan feels bad for not having escorted him out. After that bit of conversation, more days pass without anything exciting happening, and it's become a drag for Brain to sit through Chan's routine. One afternoon, he receives a call from Uncle asking for help, and Brain rushes to see him, but by the time he gets there, it's too late. Uncle is on the ground, bleeding but alive, and the police are at the apartment looking through an open window. Brain remembers Chan mentioning a man falling on a second floor, so he's sure now that Chan is behind all this. He returns to the apartment and begins pulling the pages off his notebook to spread them all over the place while he takes notes on the walls too, trying to find the missing piece he's lacking. A few days later, Chan knocks at Brain's door. Seeing him through the peephole, Brain decides to ignore him until he's gone. Then he concentrates on following the noises upstairs, and he's so distracted that he doesn't notice his landlord also coming over and almost getting inside his apartment to drop their contract. Brain stops him just in time and promises to clean the writing on the walls to get him to leave. Afterward, he spies the landlord's movements through the window, discovering that Chan is talking to him about something serious. Things get worse when Brain sees people checking the building's windows and a voice in the microphone says here's another one before removing them all. Afraid to be caught, Brain rushes out of the apartment and bumps into Chan, who just apologizes before going away. Desperate for revenge, Brain makes a plan to kill Chan. The idea is to reflect the sun's rays to blind a car driver and make them run over Chan. However, while putting his plan in motion, Brain receives a call from Uncle, explaining he had jumped because he took too many pills. At that moment, the TV shows a reporter interviewing the bus driver that has finally woken up and is now telling everyone his version of the events. It turns out it had been an accident after all, and Uncle caused it because he dropped the balls he had with him to pretend he was a toy seller. Chan had nothing to do with it. Wong had jumped only because he was overwhelmed by guilt. As Brain finally comes to terms with the fact he had been wrong, a solar eclipse occurs and blocks the sunlight, so the car misses Chan. However, when the sun comes out again, the rays get reflected onto a different car. Brain runs to stop it and Chan recognizes him when he sees him, but Brain isn't fast enough and the blinded car kills Chan's wife. Sometime later, Brain cleans the apartment to leave it for good. On his way out of the building, Chan finds him and stabs him as he asks him why Brain had to harm him like this. Brain dies staring through the window and wondering if he'll finally reunite with his wife. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.